Hello everyone, welcome to Click2Cloud. In this video, we are going to look at Click2Cloud DockM tool, which is a lightweight management UI solution for Docker, which allows you to easily manage your different Docker environments, including Docker hosts or Swarm clusters, from a single place. It also helps you in containerizing your application. So let's go and look at the tool. So here we are at the tool. I've already created the user with the name admin. I'll just log in. Okay, so at first it basically asks me to connect to a Docker endpoint. So, I can connect. This being a containerized application itself, you can ask it to connect to the same Docker host on which it's running, or you can provide a remote Docker instance on which you want to connect. So, we're just going to provide a remote Docker instance to connect it to. This Docker instance that I'm providing it is basically a single Docker host running on a Alune ECS instance, which I've exposed using TLS certificates. So this is the IP and the port on which my Docker is listening on. Now I'll provide the TLS certificates. I've already downloaded the certificates from the ECS instance. Let's connect to this instance. It's connecting to the Docker endpoint, and it has connected to the endpoint that we provided. You can see it here from the sidebar navigation menu that we have connected to the early ECS Docker instance. This is the dashboard of the application, where you can see the information about the node as well as the stats for the Docker host, about the containers, how many volumes, images and networks. You can navigate to different features of this application from the sidebar navigation menu. As you can see, we are at the dashboard right now. So you can go to containers, where you can create a container from an already available image, or you can pull an image from here. This is the quick access menu, so that you don't have to go to the navigation again and again once you are comfortable with the application. So as you can see, I've already pulled a lot of images on this particular Docker host. You can see we have an Nginx image over here. Let's use this image to create a container. Let me just go to the containers page quickly. Okay, so in here you can go and add a container. Let's give it name my web server. Provide the image name over here, which is Nginx. If the image is not available in the Docker registry, at this point of time it will pull the image first from the configured registry. By default it's Docker Hub, and then it will create a container from. Over here you can publish all the exposed ports, the random ports of the host, or you can provide a custom mapping. So I know the Nginx application server is going to be up on the port 80, so I'll map it with the host port, let's say 9015, just to be sure it's not used. Right now I'll just disable this. At the end you can see, like, we have other advanced container settings configuration that you can do, the command that you want to give or override for the image, the entry point, working directory or console actions. You can also provide the volume, like you can bind volume. You can provide the network on which you want this container to use. Also you can provide the environment variables for this particular container, the labels, restart policy and runtime. There are a lot of options for running a container as you do it from a Docker client tool. Let's just start from here. Okay, so the container has been created successfully. As you can see, we have a new container in the table. My web server tells you the image name, IP address, the published post, that is 80 from the container, 9015 from the host. Once you click on that, you'll be able to see, you can see the application running over here. Just like pulling an image and creating a container from it, you can pretty much do everything that a Docker client does. Like you can create a service from here. You can also provide the advanced configuration from here. You can also basically go to networks and create a new network. Also, you can create secrets for this Docker host, which you can provide to the containers the access to. You can also see the Docker Swarm information from here, like how many nodes are on this particular swarm and the details about that particular node. Now moving on to the very useful and interesting feature of this application, app to container. This feature basically helps you to containerize your application source code. So we have three parameters over here: builder image, source code URL, and the new image that you want to create for the application. So builder image is nothing but the language specific images which you provide. We have some pre-configured images over here. You can select from this, or you can enter your own image name from here. So let's select the Node.js builder image. Apart from the builder images that you're seeing over here, we have more images available with us, more than 100 plus, including builder image for ASP.NET Legacy applications and .NET Core 2.0 applications. And you provide the source code URL. This is basically the Git source code URL. It could be your GitHub, it could be your Bitbucket source code repository. So I have a Node.js example source code with me. Let me give a new name to the application image that will get created. Let's build this image. So what it's doing right now is pulling the builder image that we have provided here, and with the help of that builder image we pull the source code, we compile the source code, and we create a new runnable image for that particular application. So the image has been created and we have the build logs over here. As you can see that the build is completed successfully. If we go to the images section of the tool, you can see we have a hello node.js image over here which we just created using app to container feature. We'll use this image to run a container which will be nothing but a sample node.js application. Let's go to the container section, add container, give the name for the container hello node.js, the image name. Let's actually publish it to disable this and start the container. Okay, so you can see the container has been successfully created with the name hello node.js. Once we go to this published port, you can see we have our sample node.js application up and running, which we just built at the moment using the builder image for node.js and using just the source code. We containerize the application. Right now we are just managing a single Docker endpoint. Now let's see how we can add more Docker endpoints to manage multiple Docker instances. So from the menu you can go to this endpoint section from DockM settings. In here you can see the Docker endpoint that we had added while we were running the application for the first time. Now let's add another endpoint. I'll give it a name early cluster. Let's give the endpoint URL. I have the public IP already available with me, the TLS certificates for this particular endpoint, the CS certificate, the cert, and the key. This particular Docker endpoint is basically a early swarm cluster that we are connecting it to. The previous one was just a single Docker instance that we connected to. Let's add the endpoint. The endpoint has been added, as you can see over here in the table, with the name early cluster. And once you go to the navigation menu, you can see in the active endpoint the current selected is early ECS Docker, and we have another one that is early cluster, which is nothing but our early cloud container service with swarm mode on. So let's select the early cluster. It's connecting to it using the certificates and the endpoint URL. Okay, so you can see the information about the cluster over here, how many containers are there, volumes, networks, and images. It's pretty much the same what you saw with the single Docker instance. So you can manage your cluster as well from this application by just selecting it from here. Now let's go and see the swarm information. As you can see, we have two nodes in this swarm cluster with their memory and other stats available over here. So you can pretty much do all the stuff that we did with the previous Docker instance for this cluster as well. You can containerize your application on this. You can add more endpoints. There is no limit to adding the endpoints. Another very useful feature is basically user management feature, which is accessible from here. What it does is basically you can create users and define their access on this application, like on which particular Docker endpoint they have access, on which features will they have access on. Also, there is one more interesting feature. It's registries from the DockM settings. Once you go in here, you can configure your own private or public registry over here. If you have images, you can go to custom registry, enter the name, the registry URL, the authentication if it is a private registry, and then you can use this registry to push and pull images. I'll show you where you can select it. Let's go to the images section. You can select the registry from here once you have configured it. So it basically provides you end-to-end management of your Docker cluster or Docker host. So this is all about the Click2Cloud DockM application. Thank you.